Yay! It is I, Becca Lori Hector, here with Being Becca Live. Welcome, you guys. It is yet another Tuesday, and here we are in Being Becca Live. This is where we kind of gather to talk about the struggles and challenges of being an autistic adult alive right now, and not when research catches up. Yay! So here we are for another edition of, excuse me, I have like a frog in my throat right now. Excuse me, you guys. Anyway, so I'm excited about today because I have a really good topic, and I was concerned a little bit about, I guess, what I was going to talk about today. I had a couple of ideas, some things I wanted to talk about, but none of those things really felt like they were in alignment with the stuff that we talk about here. I felt like I was kind of feeling pressured by numbers. Hey, Joe, feeling pressured by numbers and, followers and subscribers and views and all of the things that we're not supposed to pay attention to. But I do have to think about, at least when I'm coming up with topics for us here on the live stream, because if we don't get views, what am I doing it for, right? Like, what is the point? Hey, Bernard. Hey, Bill. So that's kind of where I was at last night when I was thinking about this. So I thought to myself, well, here's a topic I've never thought about or talked about here, but also not a topic I really ever talk about all that much. So maybe I'll talk about autism and sex. And that's what I said to myself. And then when I said it to myself and I wrote it down in the calendar, I said, people are going to be so disappointed if this is my topic. This is such a, clickbait topic. It's such a clickbait title. It's such all of those things. And that is not in alignment with me. So I was like laying in bed last night, just like, what am I going to talk about? I have no ideas. Hi, Morgan. Hey, Ross. And so I was like there with it, right? Like, what am I, blah, 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 keeping me awake. And then I said to myself, why, Becca, are you being such a perfectionist about this stupid live stream? You do a live stream twice a week. You can't possibly come up with something phantasmic every single week. Why are you being like this? And then I went, duh, autism and perfectionism, right? Oh, is it a problem in our community, right, you guys? Huge. It's a huge problem for us. And there's a lot of reasons why. That we are so subject to perfectionism. And so what I want, especially when I want to add in, especially in parentheses, those of us who are diagnosed late in life. Okay. So let me get comfy for a second as we get into this, because I then thought, what? We have to talk about this. Bill said they can't all be diamonds. You're right, Bill. They can't all be diamonds. But I sure would like it if they were at least partially sparkly like that. Anyway, so yes, Joe agrees it's also huge. And I think it's such a big topic. Like, how have I not, morning, Nancy, how have I not talked about this before? How have we not discussed autism and perfectionism before? So let's talk about it. So what I did when we talked about toxic people, remember, update on that, by the way, the toxic people article, I've sent it into 3, 4, and I sent it into 2 more places yesterday. I am sparkly. Thank you, Bill. I feel sparkly. Maybe I should put that on a shirt. You are sparkly, or I am sparkly. Maybe I will. Anyway, but yes, that is what I want to talk about. So I went and I did some research. So let's, just like that toxic people article, I pulled up one of the listicles, the many listicles out there about signs that you might be a perfectionist, right? And here, listen, this is in the first paragraph of this article. So if it doesn't ring true to you autistics, okay, I don't know what else to say, because when I read these 2 sentences, I said, well, we definitely have to talk about this. So here it goes. Ready? The problem with perfectionism is that perfectionists actually tend to achieve less and stress more than regular high achievers. You hear that? Achieve less, stress more. You know what that sounds like to me? A spoon suck. That's what that sounds like to me. That is a spoon suck. And how many of us just let our spoons be sucked away by that crap? Here's the next sentence. Listen closely. Being a perfectionist makes it more challenging to meet the goal of being perfect. What? Say again. Being a perfectionist makes it more challenging to meet the goal of being perfect or even of reaching a personal best. What? What? Mind blown, right? And if you're a perfectionist, I hope your mind is blown too. So what it means is the harder I work at being perfect, the less I achieve, but the more stress I feel. Okay, it's absurd. That's illogical. So your autistic brain should feel blown up by this because it is so illogical to do what we do, right? And that being a perfectionist, so choosing to be as perfect as possible, trying to make that is more challenging. It makes it more challenging to meet the goal, right, of being perfect. And you didn't hear it come out of the sentence that anyone actually achieves perfection, right? There is no actual achieving of perfection in any of this conversation, right? It's just about, it makes it harder to get there. Why? Because your standards are constantly raising. Well, I did that, but that wasn't perfect, right? Level up, level up, level up, right? And it's just this unnecessary pressure that we put on ourselves, okay? So here's the difference between perfectionists and high achievers, okay? These are the symptoms, the signs, they say, of a perfectionist versus someone who is just a high achiever, okay? So we know, and of course, let me make that difference, that we talk about stuff all the time in here. And I always tell you, when it gets to the point that it is interrupting your life and it is making it impossible for you to do the things that you want to do, we have hit an area of distress. We have hit an area where the behavior needs to be managed, okay? And so perfectionists are a lot like high achievers, but with the exception of these signs, right? And perfectionists is not a healthy way to live. Being a high achiever is just fine, right? Got it? Okay. So all or nothing thinking is the first one. Do we know about all or nothing thinking? Do we do all or nothing thinking like it is our job? We do. We do it all the time, right? All or nothing thinking. In fact, one of the things that people know most about autistics is that we have black and white thinking. Black and white, all or nothing, whatever you want to call it. It is the symptom of the autistic brain. So boom, right away, our nature is to be in Perfectionville. Do you see that? That's our nature, the way our brains are built, right? Okay. Highly critical. Perfectionists are more critical of themselves than other people. Well, how often do we as autistics become self-critics, right? How often is it that we are actually criticized by others, right? And then we take on that criticism, right? It becomes our own criticism of ourselves, right? We have a tendency, perfectionists have a tendency to hone in on imperfections, right? And for those of us who have ever made a social mistake and then gone home from that party and run the whole party through our heads a billion times so that we could kind of see all the imperfections that we made and then make sure that we don't do them again. So we memorize them, right? Yeah, that's being highly critical of yourself, right? All right. Pretty natural for an autistic. That's actually, maybe it's not so natural for autistic as it's a learned behavior from society that we become highly critical of ourselves. Here's another one, pushed by fear. Duh. I don't know any more or any bigger group of anxious people than autistics, right? We are constantly in that state of fight, flight, or freeze, right? We talk about that clinically as a piece and a part of autism, right? We talk about that. So like high achievers tend to be pulled towards their goal. They tend to find it almost not magnifying, like magnetic. That's the word. They find it almost magnetic, right? And people who are perfectionists, we tend to be pushed towards our goal. So there's usually somebody behind us going, you can do it. You can do it, right? Sound familiar? Yeah, sure. Okay. Unrealistic standards. Well, I do believe that when you are an autistic person who is trying to be a really successful neurotypical person, that would be an unrealistic standard, yes, right? And yet we are encouraged to pass, and we are encouraged to be normal. And those standards are unrealistic for an autistic brain. So there's that, okay? Focused on results. Well, I think that because our brains are just so logical, we can't help but focus on the results. So we are the people that only consider ourselves successful when we reach the goal, right? We don't enjoy the journey, right? We ignore all of the stuff that happens along the way. We're just focused on results. Do I have friends? Did I get a job? Do I have a place to live? Why? Black and white thinking of the autistic brain, right? Absolutely. All right, this is a great one, right? Depressed about unmet goals. How many of us have succumbed to autistic inertia because we are depressed because of our unmet goals? Like maybe we're still on Social Security and that was a goal to get off of it. Maybe we didn't want to be living with a roommate and we wanted to live on our own, but we're still living with someone or living with our parents or whatever that might be, right? And then we sit and wallow in that. Another behavior of a perfectionist. Okay, they go on and on. Let's see, there's a few more. Fear of failure. Well, when everything that you do is considered a failure and that's how the world tells you about it, of course you don't want to fail. And when we're trying so hard to mask and fit in, failure means not passing, right? That's what the fear is. The fear is of failing to mask well, right? Fear of our authentic nature, right, is always at the core of that. Procrastination. Well, I know more autistics that have a PDA brain that I can even tell you. Task avoidance, no problem for the autistic brain. In fact, the more difficult something is for us to really grasp when we can't come up with step one, our next move almost religiously is to procrastinate, right? The autistic brain goes, I don't know, leave it there, and we roll it off and move on, right? Defensiveness. This is something you don't always see, I think, in autistics, though we do see it because we are working so hard at doing whatever we're doing perfectly. When someone points out a flaw, we get defensive and angry right away, right? Because we did all this hard work, and what do you mean I'm failing at it, right? Okay, so that happens. And then, of course, low self-esteem, right? Well, low self-esteem and undiagnosed autism are like married and have children, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. So those are some traits of a perfectionist. And when I look at that, right, I say to myself, you've just described a whole bunch of undiagnosed autistic people. That's what you just described. And so, of course, we are perfectionists. Of course we are. But what does that do for us? Does it serve us well? Let's think about that. And if you have to think about it for more than a few seconds, I say, you're thinking about it too hard, right? Perfectionism is not, first of all, it's not achievable. No human being is perfect. Everybody has flaws. And let's be real honest about it. Imperfections are beautiful. Those imperfections are beautiful. And if you're an artist, you know that really well. We will try to control the painting, control the essay, control the poem. We'll try to control the music, right? But occasionally we make a mistake. And sometimes when we make those mistakes, they are gorgeous, right? Sometimes you walk into the wrong building and that's a mistake, but you meet someone amazing, right? So what was it really a mistake? Well, it was a beautiful mistake. So why don't we embrace the mistakes in that way? Why don't we see them for that? Well, we don't, and we don't want to make them, and we don't want people pointing out that we're different anymore. And we've worked really hard to just fit in. And so please, right? And that's the feeling, right? And so we think if we work harder, if we do better, if we pass better, if we do our jobs better, if we are a better friend, a better wife, a better whatever, right? If we are the perfect spouse, the perfect brother, the perfect mother, right? Then we won't be, right? And then this, then that, then this, then that, then what? Then what is what I say to you? Yeah. And so we need to be kinder to ourselves. We need to undo some of that shit. We need to remember that nobody is perfect and that we, in our imperfect selves, are good enough like this, right? Because what we're doing to ourselves is keeping ourselves from our goals, keeping ourselves from taking risks, keeping ourselves from letting the world see our true selves. And that is not healthy. And that's not something I agree with. And that is not something that is in alignment with the life that I want to live. I want to embrace my imperfections. I want to love myself for exactly who I am, the way that I am, with my poor motor coordination, my inability to do makeup, my only clothes that I can wear are comfy clothes, right? All of that stuff. I want to learn to love those parts too. And that means I need to let go of a lot of this perfectionist behavior. And I don't do it often. I've gotten rid of a lot of it, but I caught myself last night. I caught myself in that perfection trap with wanting to people please and make everybody happy with what it is of the topic that I've chosen for today. And I can't. I will never, ever, ever pick a topic for a live stream that will please every fucking body that watches it. No way. So why even put that on myself? Why bother, right? Let me catch up in chat because you guys are over there chatting it up. Mind blown from Michelle. Yes, right? Okay, that was an insane thing to read. I want to read those two sentences again. I have them highlighted in this article because I think I need to read them every day sometimes, right? It's absurd. But yes, let's see. I can't be a high achiever because my need for perfection paralyzes me so that I never, ever get started. So nothing gets achieved. Yes, Michelle, that is the cycle that we need to stop. That is that perfection cycle. It's not letting us do anything. It just keeps us from doing everything. Bernard says he's terrified of making mistakes and he's often seeking negative feedback when he asks for advice. I notice I often disregard compliments. Wow, a lot of us do that, right? We receive so few of them as we are developing as human beings. We receive so few compliments that we have no practice with how to receive them. And so therefore, when we receive them, we are uncomfortable and we don't want them, right? Does that sound familiar, Bernard, at all? Right? And Bill says that is so me to be highly self-critical. Yes. Right? Anything, if other people make mistakes, totally fine for them to make mistakes, totally fine for them to be embarrassed, totally fine, right? For us, no, not allowed. No way. Okay? Why? I mean, it comes from the criticism we've received, obviously. It comes from the fact that our very nature is criticized from early on, right? But to do it to ourselves, right? To not see our own value, our own perfection in the imperfection, right? God, it just kills me. Anyway, let's see. Michelle says, yes, there's the old negative bias. We focus on the negative and disregard the compliments, right? Bernard often points out his faults to try to get other people to see them. And yes, you do, Bernard, because what it does is not only does it make them look at you and that way, right? But then you're also feeding the monster. You're feeding the monster that sees you that way. Right? When you do that. And so, yes, I mean, I think that's probably some really awful mental habit that you've gone to as a safe coping mechanism that we need to get rid of. Now you're aware of it, Bernard, so you're stuck. Know better, do better. It's a crux, right? So now you know better. What can we do to make you feel better so you can do better, right? That's where we're at in the journey. So think about that piece. Let's see. Michelle says, not being able to initiate tasks is also an executive functioning issue and not something we should beat ourselves up about. Correct, right? Getting stuck or not knowing step one or being overwhelmed by the task is not an excuse to not ask for help, right? If we don't allow ourselves to get in that stuck place, we do so much better. And the one way to keep ourselves out of that stuck place is to ask for help or advice from someone else. And you can begin with the people in this group. There's no reason to have to take it to an outside source right away, right? You can begin by just asking advice in our STL group. And in that group, well, we can begin the conversation of how to get you to step one, right? Allowing yourself to sit there and not seeking the help is a different story. That's perpetuating the inertia, creating a habit of badness. Please don't do that, right? There's always a Karen. Michelle, you're so right. She says, there's always a Karen who is eager to point out our mistakes. You're right. There will always be that Karen, right? Sorry for all the Karens out there. We have a Karen in here sometimes, Karen. I'm sorry. But, right, we do. There's plenty of those people in our life. I like to call them pot stirrers. And I got that from Judge Judy. It makes me really happy to say it out loud because people who do that, who point out our flaws, who, create a problem with no solution. I call them pot stirrers. They like to come around and stir the pot up when everything's just fine. And so, yes, we need to ignore them because they pointed out for us plenty. We don't need to point it out too, right? We need to point out our the things that we're good at to kind of circumvent all the Karens and all of their all of their criticisms and stuff. Bill says more autistic folks need to see this episode in particular, Becca. Yay! I picked a diamond, even though I didn't know it, right? You see how the minute I took the perfectionism off, I managed to make a good decision right in front of you, happening. And we're not talking about autism and sex, because why would we? There's plenty of people talking about it out there. That's not the shit we want to talk about in here, Beck, right? So, yeah. Oh, you call them Darth Vaders. That's good too, right? Because that's what we think. They have the mask on and they start to go, Michelle, you're not good at that thing. Michelle, you messed up a stitch over here. I see it, right? And that's what happens. And then we hear them in there. So call them what you will, but they do that job just fine. We don't need to be adding to it. And so, yes, yes, and I do. That is an excellent quote. You can't please everyone, so you should just please yourself, right? And that is the place to start, right? Is by taking care of yourself first, because then you have the energy to do the other things that we like to do. So that is sort of my take on perfectionism, and that I still apparently have small little habits of it, especially when it comes to the stuff that I'm creating for us, right? I just want to help people. And so I really don't want to make a mistake. I want to make it clear. I want to help people and I want it to come out right. But I'm also a human being. I'm not a robot. And so it's never going to come out perfect. It's always going to have the essence of human in it, right? And that means it will always be slightly imperfect. And so I need to learn to love my imperfections. God damn it, I love my imperfections, right? I love my cleft chin that I think about and I worry about all the time and look at in here. I love the way my brow furrows, right? These are all things that I need not waste my spoons on, because unless I'm doing this, I barely look in the mirror. And who the hell am I seeing? All of those things, right? Why do we allow ourselves the notion that we can even achieve perfection? Why do we allow that? Even the notion that you could achieve it in any way, shape, or form. We need to think about that piece a lot. Like, stop telling your kids that they're perfect. Like, oh, I love you, you're perfect. Don't say that to somebody. What a terrible goal to set for them for the rest of their lives. Why not say, I love you, you're imperfect, right? That's the thought I want to leave you with, I think, today. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope other people want to see this. And you know what, Bill? If you really think it's something people need to see, when it gets shared this afternoon, share it. Share it around. Let other people know that they need to see it if this is that episode for you. As always, you guys, I see your comments wherever you post them. So you can post your comments and reactions to this video wherever you're watching it. You can also email your questions, queries, criticisms, all that stuff directly to me if you're not comfortable with the public forum. And you can email me at info@beccalaurie.com, right? And if you're not so good with email, you can always just head right over to my website, which is beccalaurie.com, and use the contact page, which goes directly to me. And while you're there, you can sign up for Monthly Musings, which is my free newsletter. You can find all my social media. You can find the Ko-Fi page and the Self-Defined Living Redbubble store and get yourself a cool shirt. And you can do many other things when you're on my website. Everything that I do is all there, so you can find whatever you need. Until then, I will see you guys out and about on the interwebs. As always, I will be back here for Growing Gratitude on Sunday. And then, of course, I'll be back next Tuesday with the very next Being Becca Live. Until then, I'll see you out there, you guys. Have a good one. Bye.